Most people think Alzheimer's begins with memory loss, but brain changes linked to Alzheimer's can begin a decade or more before diagnosis, quietly altering how the brain works long before major memory loss begins. And in some cases, those changes can begin as early as your 30s. Some of the earliest warning signs don't look like memory problems at all. Subtle shifts in judgment, changes in language, how you navigate familiar places, or gradual changes in mood and personality. Because these signs emerge slowly, they're easy to blame on stress, burnout, or simply getting older. But in some people, those ordinary changes are signals that something more significant is going on beneath the surface. In this video, we're exploring 12 early signs of Alzheimer's that may appear in your 40s or 50s, including several that most people would never connect to brain health at all. This isn't about diagnosing yourself. It's about knowing which patterns are worth a conversation with your doctor. Make sure you watch through to sign number 1. It's the clue that family members and close friends tend to notice first, often long before the person experiencing it has any idea something has changed. Sign 12 is one that many people dismiss as simple forgetfulness, repeating questions or stories. When the same questions or stories begin repeating frequently, within the same conversation or the same day, clinicians treat it as one of the more recognizable early warning signs of a change in how new memories are being formed. The hippocampus is the brain's memory filing system. When it becomes less efficient, a person may ask a question, hear the answer, and genuinely have no memory of that exchange just minutes later. The concern is not the mistake itself, it is the pattern, especially when it becomes noticeable to the people around you. Sign 11 is one most people never connect to memory at all, and it has to do with trouble finding words while speaking. Instead of a brief tip of the tongue pause, a person may begin stopping mid-sentence more frequently, substituting vague terms like that thing, or finding that familiar everyday words suddenly feel inaccessible. Think of language like a road network. If certain pathways become less efficient, the message takes longer to arrive. The destination still exists. The route just becomes harder to access. In some younger onset cases, these language changes can appear before memory problems ever become obvious. Sign 10 is one that often gets dismissed as distraction or a busy schedule, losing track of time or place. Early cognitive changes can affect the brain's ability to orient itself in time and space. Think of it like an internal GPS running quietly in the background. When that system becomes less efficient, a person may become confused about dates, seasons, or familiar locations in ways that feel unusual for them. Clinicians pay attention when these episodes become more frequent and represent a noticeable change, especially when other cognitive changes are emerging alongside them. Sign 9 is something most people write off as being disorganized, misplacing things, and being unable to retrace steps. The concern is not losing an item, it's losing the ability to mentally retrace the steps that would normally help you find it. Think of memory like a trail of footprints. When those circuits become less efficient, that trail becomes harder to follow, and people may repeatedly place items in unusual locations with no recollection of how they got there. Sign 8 is one that can catch people completely off guard and includes difficulty completing familiar tasks. Early cognitive changes can interfere with familiar routines, not because the skill is gone, but because coordinating the sequence of steps suddenly requires more effort. Think of it like an orchestra performing a piece it knows by heart. Each section still knows how to play. But if communication between sections becomes less coordinated, the performance starts to feel disjointed. In early or younger onset cases, this often shows up in complex work tasks long before classic memory problems become obvious. Sign 7 is one that hits closest to home for a lot of people in demanding careers, trouble planning, or solving problems. These abilities depend on what researchers call executive functions, the brain's management team. When those networks become less efficient, tasks requiring multiple steps can feel overwhelming. A budget becomes confusing. A familiar set of instructions needs to be read several times. What makes this sign easy to miss is that many people compensate well early on with more lists, more reminders, more double-checking. And these workarounds can keep the pattern change disguised for years. Sign 6 is changes in judgment and decision-making, which loved ones often notice before the person themselves does. Early cognitive changes can affect the brain's internal filter for determining what is reasonable, safe, and appropriate. A person may become more vulnerable to scams, make unusual financial choices, or take risks that surprise the people who know them best. The concern is never a single bad decision. It is a persistent pattern that represents a meaningful departure from someone's normal decision-making style. Sign 5 is one that is frequently blamed on burnout or stress. For many people in their 40s and 50s, the earliest noticeable changes don't happen at home. They happen at work. Tasks take longer. Multitasking becomes harder. Small errors occur more frequently. Complex professional roles place simultaneous demands on memory, attention, judgment, and language. That is precisely why subtle changes can show up in high-demand work environments before they become obvious anywhere else. Up next, signs that have nothing to do with memory and everything to do with how the brain sees and interprets the world. Sign 4 is the one that surprises people the most and includes visual and spatial challenges. In some individuals, particularly in younger onset cases, early symptoms can involve visual and spatial processing rather than memory. The eyes may be perfectly fine. The challenge is how the brain interprets what they are seeing. Activities like judging distances, navigating unfamiliar environments, or parking a car can start to feel unexpectedly difficult. There is even a pattern called posterior cortical atrophy, where visual and spatial symptoms appear prominently, while day-to-day memory still seems largely intact. Many people spend months assuming they simply need a stronger glasses prescription. Sign 3 is one that is almost never connected to brain health, changes in mood and personality. A confident person becomes unusually anxious. Someone who is typically calm turns irritable. Others seem withdrawn or less interested in activities they once loved. Because these shifts develop gradually, they are easy to blame on stress or getting older. But the brain structures involved in emotional regulation can be affected during the progression of Alzheimer's disease. What makes this sign significant is that these changes can emerge before cognitive symptoms become obvious. Loved ones often sense it before they can name it. They just know the person no longer seems entirely like themselves. Sign 2 is one that can go unnoticed for a long time because withdrawing from social activities can simply look like a preference for introversion. Social situations are more cognitively demanding than they seem. Conversations require attention, memory, language processing, and the ability to follow multiple streams of information at once. When those systems are under strain, social interactions can become exhausting. Some people unconsciously begin avoiding gatherings, not because they no longer care, but because keeping up requires more energy than they have to give. Loved ones notice this first. Less talkative, less engaged, declining invitations they once accepted without a second thought. Sign 1 is the most important sign on the list. We observe ourselves from the inside, one day at a time. Gradual changes are hard to detect from within your own experience. But the people around us observe from the outside. They notice patterns. They compare today to months or years of previous experience. Think of it like watching a tree grow. If you see it every day, the change is almost impossible to notice. But someone who visits once a year sees the difference immediately. A spouse notices increasing repetition. A coworker observes unusual mistakes. Adult children detect shifts in mood or daily habits. Individually, those observations seem minor. Together, they reveal a pattern far more meaningful than any single symptom on its own. So what should you do if several of these signs sound familiar? Don't panic. Many of these symptoms can occur for reasons that have nothing to do with Alzheimer's. Stress, poor sleep, depression, thyroid issues, vitamin deficiencies, certain medications, and menopause can all produce remarkably similar changes. Think of it like a warning light on a dashboard. It deserves attention. It does not automatically mean the worst. Pay attention to persistent patterns across multiple areas of life. Are these changes consistent? Do they represent a shift from your normal baseline? Are the people closest to you noticing something too? If concerns persist, speak with a qualified healthcare professional. A proper evaluation can include cognitive testing, blood work, and sometimes imaging. Many causes of cognitive symptoms are completely treatable when identified early. The brain gives subtle signals when something begins to change, not dramatic warnings. Just small, quiet patterns easy to overlook in everyday life. Understanding those patterns is not about expecting the worst. It is about respecting one of the most extraordinary systems in the natural world, one that is still working hard for you every single day. Which of these signs surprised you most? Let us know in the comments. If you found this helpful, subscribe to The Wellness Method. We will see you in the next one.